Where did it go? Oh, my mic's off. Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas or opinions expressed by myself, the guest, or a caller may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It's the state of giving and receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. So what then is Enlightenment Evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to a more complex human being, living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, and this is the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. Welcome, everyone. We have an amazing guest today. Debbi Dachinger is an amazing lady, amazing person with an amazing story, and we're going to be getting her to come in here very soon. But before we do that, we got to do announcements. First of all, I apologize. My voice sounds a little off. I've not been feeling very well. If I had to channel tonight, I would have canceled, but I'm here, and I'm here because of the guest who's here, who's amazing, and because you guys come here every week to listen. I appreciate it more than you guys could ever know. Appreciate you guys being here and being a part of our journey. Secondly, I want to share some announcements for the Enlightenment Evolution Network. The Enlightenment Evolution Network has 3 shows. One of them has been up in the air, and that's the Mothership, and I still have no further news on that. Our life's been busy, so I have not had time to make contact with SPG about when that's going to come back on, but when I do, you guys will know. Secondly, the show Out There Talk has also been off for a few weeks, and I assumed that they were running, so I had announced that they were running, and if you guys ran over there and there was no show, sorry about that. Valiant himself, the person who does that show, opened a new restaurant. That's the third restaurant that him and his wife own, so he's extra busy. But you can always go to Out There Talk at Instagram. That's where his show is, and that's where he does live, usually every Tuesday and Wednesday on 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 8:59 p.m. Pacific. And that's going on for the network. Also, thank you, Colleen. I see your message. Not yet, but maybe through before the night's over, I'll message you if that's the case. For the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, we have some guests coming up. I will be announcing them as they come. I do have the list, but it's not with me tonight. Unfortunately, I didn't have quite enough time to grab that list, but we do have some amazing guests coming in the next couple weeks. If you want to know who will be here, you can always keep an eye out on any of my platforms, social media, Facebook, YouTube, our Discord channel, which is an amazing place. You can always check that out. Any place that you see the ET Whisper on Facebook, YouTube, or Rob Gauthier on Facebook, or the Enlightenment Evolution Hour or Network, any of those places, guests will be announced an hour before the show starts. So you can always go there 1 hour before we go live here and check out who the guest is going to be, or just show up here at the ET Whisper, the Matrix Mind Media, or the Enlightenment Evolution Hour Facebook page as we live stream. And after we do live stream, these shows also go to Conscious Awakening Network and also the Matrix Minds Media, which is live as well on Facebook and also Forbidden Knowledge News Network and multiple platforms. As for the ET Whisper, there are only a couple announcements. Thank all of you guys for being around. Also, Kalina Angel has put out a new video. If you have not seen it, it's an amazing one. You can go to Kalina Angel on YouTube with the Angel with 2 L's, and it's the only Kalina Angel in the world. But the channel is called Kalina Angel, the Arcturian Draconian Starseed. Go check out a video, and we'll drop links in the live stream if you're here tonight. There was another announcement. Oh, yeah. So I haven't announced it publicly yet. I might have mentioned a little bit, but I will be at the Conscious Life Expo in February of next year in Los Angeles. I'm going to be there as a 90-minute speaker, a 45-minute workshop, and I will have a booth there for the whole weekend, which is a 4-day weekend, I believe. It is going to be amazing, but I will be there. And I'm also got another couple events coming up, one on the solstice, one next year. I will be announcing those once I get further details. But that's what's going on, guys. That's what's going on with everything. And now that we got the announcements out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about the guest that we have here with us tonight. Debbi Dachinger is an amazing person, a prolific author with iconic books such as Dare to Dream, This Life Counts, and A Secret Guide to Making Your Dreams a Reality, or Wisdom to Success, The Surefire Secrets to Accomplish All Your Dreams. Debbi is an international best-selling author, profound mark in inspirational literature, and has helped thousands of people realize their own dreams. For over 16 years, she has hosted the Dare to Dream podcast with Debbi Dachinger, which I was recently a guest on, and I'll be sharing more links on that throughout the time. In any social media where you're at with me, I will be sharing that. And the Dare to Dream podcast focuses on topics such as UFOs, channeling, psychic phenomena, and Dare to Dream won the COVR Award for Best Podcast Radio Show. The WELP Magazine named it one of the best 20 podcasts to listen to for the year, and it's a high-ranking self-improvement on Apple Podcasts. If you haven't heard her show, she brings in some amazing people, amazing guests, and she also works as a coach with authors and a coach on book writing and a coach on a lot of different aspects of the spiritual community, which we're going to be talking about in depth. She also has spiritual messengers translate their ideas and messages into books, which is part of what she does. And her greatest values of spirituality, community, UFOs, ETs, and healing work. She is a certified shamanic energy practitioner, certified wine specialist, and a leader in a band, Lions of Lyra. Our guest, like I said, she does everything, and she is here with us as an amazing person as she is. She can come in and tell you how great she is. Welcome, Debbi. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you being here.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Rob. One week after another, we get to hang out. How lucky are we?
I know it's becoming a thing, and I love it. I told Vivian, who is a guest who will be coming soon, one that you introduced me to, that you've been an angel for me and for us and for the family for ever since I've gotten to connect with you, because you've been so helpful and helping me with a bunch of things, but also bringing back a lot of the excitement and energy around a lot of the things that I've been trying to either get into or get pushing with too. So I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate. I think everybody here is going to love hearing about you. But that brings me to my first question. This is the question I ask everybody when we first get started.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, it won't be too bad, I hope. And if anything is too bad, I always tell everybody this too. You can always say pass, next question, and we'll move along without any questions there. But this is kind of an important aspect from my perspective. A lot of time we hear people's stories. You know, we get to hear how they started, the work that they do, the energy that they love. And we kind of know that, especially when we followed a person for a while or got to know their story. But what we don't often hear is what led you up in your life through your childhood, young adulthood, that formed you to be a person who was able to start that journey? Like, what were influences in your early life that opened you up to be excited about writing and excited about music and excited about radio and excited about all these amazing things that you do now so well?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a good question for reflection. I would say it's this amalgam between who I was really born as. I just came here like that with these proclivities. And then the influences that were around me, which I'm sure was my soul agreement before I came in. So I want to be this. So what I'll need in this life is a grandfather who is, well, he was very, very well known in the music world as an inventor, as a teacher, and he spoke everywhere around the world. He was an amazing character, and he was a beautiful listener and a really funny guy. And so I had just a very tight relationship with he and my grandmother. So he was one factor. And then the fact that he brought music into our family. So pretty much everybody was a musician. I had particular problems. I was to a degree a musician. I played violin. I was really a great violinist for a long time and a guitarist, but I had a lot of difficulty with things like music theory. It takes science and math, and my mind, however it's wired, I couldn't, no matter how many times I sat through that class, I couldn't understand it. It was very difficult for me being in a family where everybody was a genius at music. And I felt like, I can't read notes. If somebody handed me music, I couldn't sing it off the page. However, so two like outstanding things around that. And the first is that it was my grandfather who said to me when I was fairly young, you don't have the ability to perceive technically, but here's your gift, Debbie. What you can do is hear, and you can repeat back what you've heard, and what you do with music is you feel it. It is in you. That's your gift. Run with your gift. Go where your sweet spot is. Of course, he didn't say sweet back then, but those were his words to me, and I took them to heart. But it still was difficult for me because I was a professional actress and singer for a long time, and I would go to auditions and they'd hand me a sheet of music, and I look at it like, somebody who had dyslexia. It meant nothing. And here's what's incredible about that. So here I am, a singer in this band, Lions of Lyra. We're on YouTube if anybody wants to listen. And we do this beautiful, uplifting music. And it literally is until the last couple of years when we've been working with all these musicians, and they have said to me, Debbie, you have perfect pitch. And they've told me a few other gifts I have. And I tried to disown it at first because I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. And it's been said to me so much. It's amazing to me. And so I own all of this. I really embrace it. So music, my grandfather for sure. And he opened up the whole family to that. My mother was this incredibly social person and very open person, very, very open. Color, gender, race, sexual choices, whatever it was. I really honor her for that. And so grateful I grew up with that very open mind. So there were people in place that were going to get that started in me. And then, of course, also with my mom and the rest of my family was this great love of the arts. So we grew up in New York. I would go into the city, we'd see plays and we'd see theater and ballet. And we were not rich people, but my mother found a way to do this. So I always had culture in me, museums, all of that. And I still love it to this day. The rest of it has been just this crazy journey because I moved out from New York. I went to USC in California, and I was an actress. I was a professional actress for a long time and singer. And then I came into a point in my life where it was clear a transition had to happen. I didn't know how to transit. I didn't know what that meant because my whole identity, my whole life had been singer, actress. But I knew something had to give. And something was changing in me, and it was so confusing. I finally just surrendered and said, whatever. And so it led me to this wild many years of trying different things. And at the end of those 3 years, I was actually doing voiceovers for cartoons, and I loved it. And I wanted to find more ways to get my voice out there. And I saw something that said this radio station was looking for some hosts. They were hiring. And I thought in my best thinking, oh, that'll get my voice out there. And so I applied, I got the job. I did a music show for a while as a host. I hated it. Even though my background was in music, I hated it because I was so bored. And I thought, oh, you could leave anytime. And just when I said that, the owners of the station brought me in and said, we really like what you're doing. We want to give you your own show. We want you to go think about it and come back. And so they were offering me a talk show. And I just got this download because I was creating all these dreams. And I thought, I want to call it Dare to Dream. And in the beginning of my show, 16 years ago, all I did was have like transformational people come on and coaches and this and that. But what I started to notice is every time someone really spiritual came on, or a channeler or something like what you do, Rob, that was my favorite show. And I started to recognize, oh my goodness, I've always thought this was a hobby. I've always thought, oh, this is how I heal. And actually, this is the most important thing in the world to me. This is everything. This is my greatest value. This healing work, this other dimensional work, all of this fills me with passion and curiosity. And so my shows started to change. And thankfully, my listeners came with. And then I wanted to reach more people. So I started writing books. And then people on radio said, we'd like to interview you. And this opened up a world I didn't even look for. And in the interim, I had all these beautiful coaches and spiritual messengers out there, entrepreneurs saying, can I do what you do? Can you show me? And because my human design is a 2-4 generator, I have to fill need, right? That's my purpose. And so I went, okay, I can do that. And I started coaching people one-on-one and doing groups. And it was very successful. I loved it, loved it. I loved guiding them because they came here. We all came here right now with a message, with a voice. We are the light workers, right? We came to shine our light. So it's so important that we get our message out there to our tribe, our community through media. We use what is available to us today. And I mean, it's amazing doing books and interviews. So yes, that's how that whole thing grew. And the rest of it, and I can get into that later, but my personal spiritual journey has been a huge surprise to me, and humbling and scary and awesome. And it is so still unfolding.
I love that it's still unfolding. And I love that you just went through the experience kind of having something in mind and having something that was at the tip of your perspective. And then each time you bump into something new, it kind of pushed you more and more towards that direction. I think if we trust ourselves, that kind of happens with all of us. But a lot of time we don't really have it in us to follow the guidance. Sometimes you see people going through the same thing over and over and over again because they're not reacting to it differently or feeling about it or thinking about it differently. And you see a lot of people, kind of be led as you were to do this amazing thing and still don't take the call. What was your trick in doing that? What was your trick in just surrendering?
I'm not really good at that. That's what's funny. I do have a bit of the control freak in me, and I don't like not knowing. But of course, then life is going to give you the opposite, like till you get the lesson.
Well,
And
humans in general are bad at that. To be fair, all of us have that in us where we might, hold back a little bit on doing things that aren't in alignment with what we thought we were going to do or what we thought we should do. So, I don't think it's just you. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, it's true. And change can be very uncomfortable. And I would say really the trick is twofold always for me. The first is pain is a great motivator, and I don't like it. So I will do contrary. And contrary was surrendering. Well, I can't figure this out. My head didn't have an answer. I didn't know the next steps, but I was very, very clear that this discomfort and this information wasn't working for me anymore. And honestly, when you say surrender, so here's the truth. I'm a professional actress for 3 years. I know I'm done. Back then I couldn't have said those words. That would have been like verboten. But back then, that is the truth of what was happening. And it was manifesting in a way that I was getting some of the biggest screen roles, some of the biggest theater. Oh my God. I look back and think of who I would have been working with. And I was getting scripts. I was cast in these things and going, yeah, I'm not interested so much in learning the line. Yeah, I don't want to flesh out the character. And there's a part of me in the background going, what? Like, how could you not do this? This is what you're paid for. And this is what I've done my whole life. And something was changing. And that became so desperately uncomfortable because if I wasn't going to show up professionally, yeah, it was clear something was off. And I just had to finally go, okay, take this, show me, because I don't know. And, they didn't just go, da, 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 da. They didn't just hand me the next step. Here it is. It was such a journey, joining Toastmasters and going up to the gold level and starting to speak and doing jewelry for 5 years and doing, like I was doing all sorts of things that just presented. I sang in a jazz band and a big band. And every time I presented, if I felt excited, if it made me feel like, oh, I like this, then I would do it. But always inherently at some point I would think, yeah, I love this, but I can tell it's not it. It's not what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But what's beautiful when I look back in hindsight is actually every piece of what I did became the amalgam of what I'm doing now. Without all those pieces, I couldn't be doing this. I wouldn't know how to speak. I wouldn't know it. So it was a perfect journey.
It's amazing when we get a chance, when there's anything we feel complete and we look back and we're like, holy crap, if I didn't do A, B, and C that I hated, D, E, and F that I kind of liked, and X through L that I really enjoyed, I never would be able to do. It's something that I hear so many people say, and through my own insight, myself and Kalina on our journeys, sharing the energy that we share with the collective, exact same. Kalina comes back, for example, from going to college, and she went to university for 12, 13 years and had a lot of different degrees and went a lot of different directions. And when she got out of college, they're like, oh yeah, the thing you got a degree in now is pretty much worthless like a year ago. And so she couldn't find a job. But now what she does with her own work actually uses every ounce of that. So it is amazing to see how that works. And on your journey through there, the surrender is great, and being able to tell yourself that when you're doing it is wonderful. But how did you know when you did find the thing that was it? Because you found a lot of things that you said, this is fun, but this isn't it. Was it just a knowing, or what?
Yeah, I would have to say it's totally imperfect knowing. I am clairsentient, so I'm deeply connected and sensitive to feeling energy, vibration, all that stuff. And I'm pretty black and white too. I love something or I don't. There's not a lot of gray for me. And so I'm such an uber creative that all of them had elements of beautiful fun that kept me going for a while. But ultimately, yeah, then I would get bored really on some level and have to do something else. And so
Let
I guess to answer your question, maybe I didn't really even know radio was it for me, but I knew I loved it enough to keep showing up once I started doing my own show. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, I guess I just kept following the next right thing. That's the one thing I feel like I've been able to do is follow energy.
Yeah, it's something that you're good at, and I'm jumping back to this, but I saw something in the chat. Someone asked what sign you were and went through, and you said you're a Cancer, which makes sense. We've got, me and Kalina have a lot of amazing cancers in our own life, including our
Mm.
daughter. So it's always that we always get along with cancers fairly well. So that makes sense. But so back to what you're saying, the following energy is something that a lot of people in our community take classes on how to do. They take courses, they watch videos, they read books. It doesn't always come naturally to everyone. And following the energy of something where a lot of things are exciting, but not everything super exciting, is also not something that comes natural. So like you said at the very beginning, you're coming in with these great gifts and things. And something I didn't bring up either is the support system of your grandfather and your mother, and having, the right people at the right time. As you're going on forward, you said you keep finding that same experience happening. What are some of the examples in your later life as you go into this experience where you have your own show now and you're starting to do that and you're bumping into these spiritual guests? Can you give us some examples of maybe early guests that hit that spot of really exciting, that taught you something that you kept and that still works with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of these guests, I received from his publicity folks, and he was from China, and they wanted him to come on the show. And he was very, very famous in this sect called Lotus. And the experience he had was very much like the Dalai Lama, where the person before him had died, and they went throughout the whole town knowing that the next incarnation of this being was some small child in the town. It turned out to be him. And at a very young age, he was taken from his parents' house to live with this Lotus sect and be schooled and tutored and mentored until he grew up and was going to take over. And so his folks had reached out and said, "Would you have him on?" And I said, "Yes." I look back and think, gosh, would I do it now? Because he didn't speak a word of English. And here we are, we got an hour show, and his entourage shows up. And the first thing they say is, "Don't hug him, don't touch," And I said, "No problem." And they said, and we brought an interpreter. And I had a moment like, what's going to happen here? This is going to be an
This was all
interesting,
foreign to you, I guess, huh?
like literally, exactly. And then I just got very quiet and I thought, well, energy is everything. And it was truly one of my very earliest shows and one of the most divine experiences, because I let go and all I did was look at this man. And can you imagine, just even imagine the energy that came out of him and off of him? Like, how beautiful to share space with a being like this, and a really enlightened being. And I would ask the questions, and this woman was off to the side and speaking to me, taking the Chinese and converting it to English for me. And then when I asked a question, she was doing the same to him so he could understand my English and Chinese. And all we did for an hour was look at each other. We never even looked at the translator. And it was, to this day, I think about it. It was incredibly moving. And when we got up to leave, he turned to the translator and said, "I want her to have this. She's very special, and I want her to know this has my energy in it." And he took this bracelet off of his hand, and it was quite large in the sense of all the, I don't know actually what it is that was on there, that is on there. I still have it, of course. But he took this off, this beautiful, brown beaded bracelet, and gave it to me and took my hands. And I wasn't supposed to touch him, but he really wanted to hold my hands. And it was just, I had known in that moment that we had something very meaningful beyond words that had exchanged between us. And so that's something I think very fondly about. And then you know that I was Paul Selig. You know who Paul Selig is, the channeler?
Yeah, yeah.
I was his first ever interview on air.
That's wild.
And he's so amazing, and and how we even connected, of course. That's another piece of my life, but that's so beautiful how these things happen. But it was wild how we got connected. And he flew out from New York just to come to Burbank, California to be on my radio show. And while we were interviewing, I just had this really strong feeling. He was channeling. And I suddenly asked the energies, the collective that comes through him, what messages do you have for Paul? I just realized, like, you guys who channel, who's there asking questions for you? You know?
Not a lot of people think of that.
Yeah. So it was like just gorgeous to hear this very, personal information be transmitted. And then, I mean, Paul and I hung out for a while he was in LA and for the rest of his trip. And so, there's been so many amazing, amazing, amazing people. And then the biggest turning point, I would say recently, is 3 or so years ago, and here's like, oh, the big reveal, especially to your audience, but, keeping it very vulnerable. I was not a believer in UFOs. So that's interesting. So I'm getting a download as I say that. So that's the outside world. But the truth is, I also clearly was on some level, because I was reading Whitley Strieber books and I saw the Betty and Barney Hill movie, and there was all this stuff that was pulling me. And at the same time, I think I was afraid, so I kept it at bay. And then there was a big turnaround 3 years ago, and it came into my life. And when it did, and really, I was just watching Gaia TV and I was watching interviews and I was like, oh my God, this is truth. This is truth. This is truth. And the moment I said that, spirit must have been like, woohoo, because they just brought me so many people, and I started having experiences and I saw spacecraft, and there were moments when things were reaching out, or I was taking pictures and I captured things. And that's been an incredible journey until now. And I feel super blessed that I'm supported in this curiosity. And again, my audience, I didn't know what they were going to think of me because that was a big change to introduce that. But God bless, they are just all along for the ride and still listening and watching, and even more have come on board.
That's the beautiful thing about doing something like you do, doing a show and doing it for as long as you have. You could probably have somebody who doesn't talk about anything you've ever talked about on the show come in and talk, and they'll still be like, well, this is great because you're just as much a part of that energy of what they like as the guest, or the concepts that are being slapped around for the day, or any of that too, which is something that I'm beginning to see in my own exchange with people. When I first started doing channeling, it was a very definitive line between me and Trev and Ardif, and now more people are excited when they hear me say something just as much as they are the other two, which is something that's newer for me. I had a lot more of the opposite. So it's funny to go back to your first experience with this guy who had the translator and came and talked to you. It's something that I talked about actually last week in depth with our guest Dante Starshine, who said, he just got back from a world trip, and most of the places he went, he didn't speak the language that was being spoken. And in Japan, he had a time with a bunch of people who barely had any translations. And through that time, he said, when you're tuned into yourself and you're tuned into the energy of another person, sometimes you don't have to hear a word of what they're saying. It's that energy of love and excitement. It sounds like that was a very deep and profound experience for you, very similar to how he did. And it's kind of a universal thing when we break down the barriers of communication verbally and open up energy. I mean, amazing things can happen. I wanted to ask you about something, and I don't know if I will. I mean, I'm going to ask you if it's all right if we talk about it, but it's something we had talked about off air. Your experience that you had told me about with Ruben and the group that he was with. Is that okay to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So after this belief of UFOs come in and ETs, it opened you up to a lot more people, a lot more things, a lot more spiritual concepts. You had shared a little bit about being out in Japan with Ruben when he was with Lisa Royal Holt, who is a lady that I admire and find very fascinating and awesome. And she has been channeling for a long time, very in depth, very amazing channeling. Can you share a little bit about what you experienced there, if that was a part of your belief system processing, or what that was about?
Yes, it really was a huge part, a big turning point for me. And we're talking about Reuben Langdon, who is very close with Lisa and her husband, Ron Holt. And even the way I met Lisa, one of those synchronistic, amazing experiences. And then she agreed to come on my show, which by the way is a big deal because she doesn't like to do that stuff. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I've been
And
trying to get her on for like 3 or 4 years, and she's not been able to do that too, so
yeah,
yeah,
she's
that is a big
busy, but
thing.
she's shy, and she's a fellow Cancerian. Our birthdays are actually pretty close, and I get it. I so get it. And I love her and she's perfect, you know? And so she was coming in the show and then she was doing this. It was actually in Arizona and she was doing these. It's not contact in the desert, but it's the same thing. And she channels the whole weekend. And then in the evening, she does this contact work. And so it's a very closed thing. She only has 20, 25 people. She knows them. It's the same people who come every year. And this, like, we asked, can we come? And typically it would have been a heck no, but synchronistic, right? And all of a sudden she's like, well, that's weird. Two people just like had an emergency and can't go. So we went, we've been now 3 years in a row, my partner and I. And so this first year I was still like just coming into this world. I believed, God, this is all true. There are other galaxies and planets and beings and they're benevolent and like, I'm just learning all this stuff and it's big. And at the same time, I feel like, you know, the new kid on the block. So she's worked with all these people, and plus they've all had experiences, you know, I didn't at all. And so the beauty, you know, it was beautiful in the day and all the channeling and Ruben's running around and he's videotaping everything. And at night we went out to sacred ground, sacred native ground. And she did these she would channel, but also bring in a real time extraterrestrial experience with this very intimate group. And so the first year, we were in the sacred ground. And when we had a break, I I didn't know what to do with my energy. And so one of the things I'll tend to do is I can hide behind a camera or do something really creative just to keep myself going. So I had my iPhone and I was taking pictures and I had the bulb off, the flash off so that it would just take in light naturally. And I'm taking all these pictures and I got to this, I was thinking, oh, it's so pretty, the stars. I'm going to take a picture up through this tree to the stars. And then I looked at it, I'm like, my finger was in the picture. Okay, let me take that again. So I'm trying to take the picture and over again, it looks like my finger's in the picture. I'm like, that's very weird. And so I keep going and then I'm taking some out to this. I mean, it's so black, dark out there. And then I'm shooting some pictures there. Well, as it turns out, I look at the camera and I had to call Lisa over and like, could you please look at this? And what had happened when I took the photo in the tree is this, and I've seen orbs before. This wasn't an orb. This filled 40% of the screen. And it
Holy
was,
moly.
yeah, it was incredible. I have the picture. I can share it with you and it's stunning. And it's sort of this milky white with a little bit of color in it, but it is very clear because now I've taken it from many angles that this is actually an object that is there. And then there were some other interesting photos, but the other photo that was like crazy is when I took the picture that seemed in my eyes to be pitch black, but using the camera, which just took in all that light till it finally shot the photo, you could actually see a spacecraft. on the horizon.
Holy
So
moly.
yeah, and that's my first year with her. And then the second year I was with her, at the time I was having extreme physical issues in my hip. I mean, beyond. I've had that taken care of, but at the time, very difficult to sit and so forth. So we went out to this sacred land, and she always has these chairs, and you get to pick these chairs, and you just set it up in a circle and you sit down. And I'm like, oh my God, I have the shittiest chair. How is it possible of all the people here? And I'm the one with hip problems. I'm like in this old, funky lawn chair,
Oh
and we got to
no.
sit here for hours. And so she's doing all her channeling. I am suffering. And so I just started praying because I didn't think I could sit there. I didn't think I could wait till the break. I was really unhappy in my body. And I was just praying and praying for help. And all of a sudden, a phone alarm goes off. And I've never heard one of these before, but it's like emergency, emergency, medical alert, medical alert. And everybody comes up out of this experience. And we all look for some reason at this guy, Al. And he's like grabbing through his bag and going, oh my God, oh my God. Like, let me turn off the phone. And then he looks up at everyone and says, I don't have a phone. And then all of a sudden we got quiet and I realized, oh my God, it's coming from me. And so I look in the arm of this stupid chair, and sure enough, my phone, which had been turned off, is screaming medical alert, medical alert. And at the same time, Lisa, who's still channeling, and I'm apologizing because I'm like, I'm so embarrassed, because I'm really new here and what a fuss. And so Lisa says, the future of this piece of land is here. The beings are all here right now. And there are several beings facing, and she pointed to where I was, facing here because someone's in distress and needs help. And they're here to help you. And I was like,
Holy shit.
she didn't know I'd been praying. She didn't know about my hip. She knew nothing. And when she started saying all this, I was just like, this is so beautiful. And I receive, and I am so grateful that you see me, you know me, you care about me. There are no words how much this means to me. And I didn't, I would say I didn't ask for this, but of course I did ask for it. I was praying, but like, wow, what a grand way to me, all it meant was you're continuing to usher me into this world to say, Debbi, this is real. This is so a part of you. And there's been many more. I mean, I've done CE5 things out in Joshua Tree. If you're ever out here, Rob, and your beautiful woman wife, please join us. We'll do CE5 together out in Joshua Tree in the mountains. And we've done stuff like that and then driven home at 2:00 in the morning and absolutely been the only people to see spacecraft on the freeway. Oh my God. And other things.
That sounds great. Yeah. We're going to be up there in February. And yeah, that sounds amazing. The CE5 something I've done quite successfully too. It's amazing when you figure that out. But that story with the medical alert on the phone that's amazing. I mean, I've heard a lot of people have pretty great experiences, but for having that be your second time out there and you're just starting to connect with that energy, that's outstanding. I love that. That's great.
We've also been so blessed because Lisa invites us. She knows that Rob and I have our musical group. So she invites us we do like a sound bath for everybody in the mornings. And then we perform before she starts channeling every night. So we're out in the dark. Oh, it's beautiful with the crickets doing our music. And it just seems to set something up. Like I really believe they feel the frequency and come in. And then we do this whole gong thing. The group does a whole gong thing. It's just beyond. And we have absolutely seen some amazing things with Lisa thereafter, orange lights and being signaled and communicated with and so forth, the whole group. So beautiful stuff.
Yeah, I've seen some things out of Lisa, and that's besides the depth of her channeling, some things that I've seen. I've seen pictures of these light trails, like back when I was in the spiritualism church, they used to call it like plasma, like the purple plasma, but it was multiple colors, and I seen these streaking across cameras with people who were taking pictures in low light, and I've seen it many times from different people who were at these types of things with her, and Ruben was one of them. And she also had her like a aura picture taken while she was in a channel state versus before a channel state, and the coloration, the size, the shape, all different. And this is something that I'm always interested in, because I think bringing scientific validity to something that is so etheric and so ungrounded in a lot of places in our community, to bring actual scientific proof to a larger collective, helps people in that position who normally, like myself before I started my journey, would say this is not real, this isn't even something you
Mm.
should joke about.
Mhm.
But this gives it validity. So that's been one of my biggest fascinations with her. But to have you experience this, you had a spiritual journey and you had a spiritual understanding, but to transition to something like the UFO and ETs, extra dimensional, it just adds an entirely different layer. So I can only imagine, how much that shifted with you. Uh, yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing those stories too. So, you know, now you're understanding that final corner that you took with the UFOs, and that was the most recent. Um, all right, do you feel now, because you've had these experiences, that you're still very open to the possibility of things shifting and changing for your beliefs, or new things to come into your life that are just, you know, might slap you out of left field and say, "Hey, now check this out." Uh, you know?
Absolutely. Yes, I know it's a fact. I know, and it doesn't even matter what I think, it's gonna happen anyway. It's so happening right now, and it's like, thank God, right? Because I wasn't built for a boring life, clearly, but yeah, ooh, sorry, my
That's
dog is
fine.
having a big reaction to what I'm saying, I think. That's Shelby, by the way.
We
Let
love
me
all
open.
the the pet fam comes in. We
We
used
have
to have a
3
kitty that
dogs.
would meow 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 every time I'd start channeling. She'd come to my feet and meow 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 right before every time. So we love them here.
Good. Then I'm in good company. I appreciate
Always,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
We're
I guess, the other piece of this, and I feel somehow it's connected. In fact, you and I talked about it on the show, and I wanna go back and listen to that part that Artif channeled, because and you guys should definitely listen to. It was such a great show with Rob. It was so beautiful and so much good information. Yeah, so Artif, you were channeling about, because I had asked the question and I just intuitively felt, what is the connection between shamanism and UFOs? I know shamanism is ancient. I know well, it depends which sect. The Peruvian shamans talk about the Pleiadians, and they were the ones who helped settle things. The Lemurians talk about the Pleiadians as well. And then they refer, like, even we do this thing called the 4 directions when we open ceremony, and we talk about the star nations. It is a part of their practice. So I was curious, and Artif gave this beautiful answer. And where this is leading, what I'm sharing is that in 2019, I uh, I had this. For me, it was very strange, beautiful but strange. And I was in a ceremony in Costa Rica. I was drinking ayahuasca, and all of a sudden the divine came in, and beautiful conversation. But they made this proclamation, I guess you'd say, and said to me, "You're a healer, you're a priestess, you're a shaman." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think so, but thank you." That's like, it's a really beautiful thing to say, but it's probably that person on the bed over there. And I was so uncomfortable because in my mind, my reality was I interview people like you. You're the healers, you're the seers and all of that. In my mind, I thought, this is my tribe. Truly, these are my friends and these are the people I attract, and I love them for their gifts. But I've never been gifted. I'm clairsentient, but other than that, I don't get that. And so we went back and forth for 4 nights. Oh, they were so kind with me, and gracefully, gently showed me things. And by the time I was leaving that situation, they had me go to the shaman and ask for a shaman's blessing. And I'm like, oh, don't. Do you know what a shaman does to become a shaman? You know, they've been like drinking out in the jungle for 30 years. And like, it's very hard to get where they are. I cannot, that's like a kind of white man's presumptuousness. I can't, but they wouldn't stop. So I went up to the shaman and I said, listen, here's what's going on. This is what they've asked me to ask you for. And the shaman said, yes, we're going to bring you up to the first group, and it is done. I'm like, oh,
Holy shit.
that is so kind. Oh, I was so moved. And I'm sitting in the circle. I get the shaman's blessing, and really a profound shaman. And then, as if it's not enough, I'm further tested because the divine comes in and says, now, with the next shaman who comes up, is this beautiful woman named Sarah. And they said, when Sarah comes up, we want you to dress her with the words sister and say, sister, please give me a blessing so that I understand my path as a shaman. I'm like, what? I'm not going to call this amazing, divine female goddess sister. Like, I'm totally not her sister, right? She's so much more. And they wouldn't stop. It was just exhausting. And so I did it. And she responded and said yes. And she did this gorgeous prayer over me. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but I sing in Spanish, some, also in English and Hebrew and other languages, Lakota. But she put her hand on my head and did this prayer. And I understood enough of what she was saying, but energetically could feel all of it. So I come back to my life and I'm like, WTF, that was wild, man. And I have a bunch of friends who said, hey, let me do a past life regression for you. I was always really weird about those too. And so I went, okay, but please don't put me in a trance and then tell me to look down at my feet. And like, what kind of shoes are you wearing? I don't like that stuff. That's going to put me in my head and I don't like it. No problem, no problem. So my dear friend took me through these experiences for the first time in my life. It actually worked. And I saw 2 profound things. And the first thing was I absolutely saw myself as a male shaman. I saw exactly where I lived, everything, the animals, the location, everything, and how divine, just connected to the earth alone I was. But that was my life. And then another session, I went back. This one was pretty amazing. And this also was another prophetic, guess what, sweetie, UFOs are on their way. There's another prophetic where I went back and it was a Mayan culture. And I saw myself, I was probably at least 7 feet tall, looked nothing like me. You know, here I am, I have wild lion, yellow hair and green eyes and all this stuff. And I was dark skinned, extremely tall, lean. And the most amazing manifester. I was in love with this woman. She was definitely a priestess and ruled these people. And I was graced to have this long conversation with her. And I couldn't believe how she could manifest, just create. And so confident, so non-emotional. And before I was leaving, I said, well, I have one last question about you. Her name was Nedra. I have one last question about you, Nedra. And how do you do what you do? Are you connected to source? Are you like, I don't know, co-creator material? Like, what is this? And she just took her finger and pointed up. And it was telepathic. And I understood in that moment, she said, I'm actually not from here. I'm from another star. And I was oh my God, this was right before the whole turn came for me with UFOs. And I'm like, wow. So I was from another planet and I was here. And okay, this makes so much sense. And with all of that, then I shifted into music and playing for ceremonies and singing at festivals and just loving using my voice in a whole new way and thinking, well, maybe this is my shaman's path. And then COVID hit. So everything was as it was. I call it the time that the the world stopped, which
The
is
world
fairly
shut it
accurate.
down. Yeah.
And on the other side of things, when we started to come out, there's a very, very, very famous shaman that I've been following for many years. And I just love him. He's a great storyteller, and he's definitely a conduit for the shaman world to the Western people. And I was listening to him, and he made this offer and said, he has a 6-month program. And I was listening to it and I just thought, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to add it to my life. It's a full university on top of everything I'm doing. And it doesn't make any logical sense, but I have to. I have to explore this. And I am now ending my 4th month in the program. And I have been actually practicing. I have a lot of very deeply healing processes, and I have people who are coming to me and saying, I'd like to book a session and do this with you. I have ceremonies that I do, not drinking anything, but where we release things at a great deep level. And I'm watching people change. I'm watching people that I work on change. I'm feeling something I've never felt before. And I feel really moved sharing this with you right now, like kind of vulnerable and also, this thing that came to me in 2019, it was true. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand these words they were saying about me, but I'm stepping into that idea. And I don't know where it's going. I really don't. I don't know how all this is coming together. But I feel like this is a very powerful, passionate path for me. And I feel there's a part of me that knows it so well and is so happy and honored to embrace it again and to be able to use it to help people at this really auspicious time, to unload all this crap and these pains and these traumas and really be who they came here to be. So that today is my new and latest journey.
I love that. And I did realize, because we had talked before about this, about that shaman part of your journey being so new and so, uh, vulnerable when it comes to sharing it, because you haven't shared a lot of it with a lot of people compared to the other things in your life that you share quite regularly. And people know you for that. So to me, I knew this would be vulnerable, but to a lot of the people who are listening, besides the things that they're saying and sharing in the chat, I can feel that presence of understanding, because all of us who've been here at one level or another had to accept something that normally we couldn't have accepted before. You don't just come into a community where channelers, healers, psychics exist without knowing that there's some form of magic beyond what we understand scientifically, or something deep that's leveled in spirit and source that we didn't have access to before. So there's always a recognition, at least a bare minimum, and that understanding from my own perspective of how that can be when sharing these things with people, even if they are in alignment with those things in general. I totally understand, and I love that you're able to do it and that you're brave enough to do it. But I also love how you share the parts of your journey where you don't know the answer at the end of the sentence. You don't have an idea of what's around the next corner, but you're still going forward. It's something that a lot of us really need in our lives as humans, and it's something that not all of us know how to achieve or how to grasp onto. So just sharing that you're going through that too, despite how long you've been around the community and how much of a part it is, I think it's a really fascinating thing itself.
Yeah. I'm always being pushed. I'm like, what comfort zone? You know, I even got a nudge 3 weeks ago. I haven't drunk ayahuasca in a year and a half. I felt completely done, and I got this nudge all of a sudden saying, "While you're in the program, we'd really like you to drink and come be with the plants and convene with all of us in the stars. We have more for you." I was like, "Really? I don't like drinking it? It's disgusting." And there's always that element of fear. I am always afraid. I'm always like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen?" Then I get in it and it's just it's like it is who I am. I don't know how else to say it. There's such a natural, experience somehow connecting with something organic like the plant. But I'm doing it next weekend, this coming weekend.
Holy
So,
moly.
yeah, I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. That's, it's interesting. I've heard so many people say, that they've taken it, but they don't like taking it. They love the experience, but they hate the vomiting and the taste and having to cleanse their body for that long, or whatever each individual process is. I know depending on what shaman you have will dictate the specific recipe or whatever. But I've never taken it before. The closest I've ever had to an experience like that through plants was with mushrooms, and it was back
Mhm.
before I started my spiritual journey. So to me, it was just, hey, this is a party time. But I can see how it would open those doors a lot. It opened up doors for me that I didn't know that existed there. And with ayahuasca, I've heard the experiences are so drastically different from the mushroom experience. Is there something that you can share to people who, because I know it's not for everybody, not everybody
Mhm.
should take it, but
True.
what are the things that it helped you with, or things that has kind of connected to you with a process that's helped you open? Because I know a lot of people come to our guests, they come to me, they come to Treb and Arnif and say, hey, is this for me? And I don't know what to tell them because I've never experienced it. How I guess, how would you describe what it's used for and what it's good for?
Yes, well, what you said was very accurate, Rob, when you said it is not for everybody. It's true. And if it's for you, you'll be called. And, I had tons of judgment before. I'm like, I'll never do anything like that. Wahaha. And so, and yeah, and then when I was time, the call was beyond. So, I mean, it really is the greatest healer on one hand. And so it has helped me through traumas, and it has helped me to forgive many situations in my life and past, uh, my family, some exes, things like that, no matter how much work I had done, I was still on some level carrying around something around it. So it allowed me to forgive profoundly. It allowed me to have these amazing conversations with stars, past lives, stars meaning up in the stars. It's very funny because somebody wrote here in the chat, tell the moon hi. And that's actually pretty profound because on one of my journeys, I went outside and everything was sacred geometry. I never seen the world like that. So beautiful. And when I looked up, the moon said to me, "You are my granddaughter," which is interesting because as a Cancerian, I'm a moon child, but it was
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very real, right? And what's so cool about that, I will say years later, if any of you guys know Debbie Solaris. Debbie Solaris has been on my show. We've become friends. I love her madly. She's an encyclopedia of everything in the freaking galaxy. And so I was very lucky because I know she's booked years in advance, but I was very lucky to have a galactic reading with her. And so she told me the inception of my soul and where I've been, and amazing, amazing experience. There's other people out there who do it, so anyone who's interested can have it done. But one of the things she said is that I am related to the moon. And I was like, oh my goodness. that was real. That was real. So things like that can happen as well. And I think it's a beautiful heart opener. I also think you don't have to be cognizant of the healing. It can happen on a lot of levels that you're not even aware of. So, and then some people go for physical things. I mean, I saw a miracle happen for a woman who was on crutches. I don't know how to explain what the crutches were, but her whole weight had to be on these metal crutches. She came from another country, so I couldn't communicate with her, but she was young and that's how she functioned. Somebody always had to bring her up to the front of the room to get the cup of ayahuasca. And on the final night when we were drinking yahe, which is a real purgative. On that final night, she walked. She had no crutches and nobody helping her. And it was kind of like a come to Jesus moment for me to see that. So it can be used for whatever you need. You know, if you're open, the plant, it has wisdom. It knows what we need. And even, you know, in the beginning, you always set up an intention in the group. And it's kind of funny to me because I don't know how often the intention comes true. And I'll say one last thing, so it's a different perspective. This past weekend, I was working with a doctor, and this guy is amazing. And so I was working with this doctor. He started asking me about my podcast, and I just said a little bit about UFOs. And I don't know why, out of nowhere, he said, "Have you drunk ayahuasca?" I said, "That's super weird, but yes, I have. Why?" And then he starts telling me about how he has. He's done it 6 times. This is a freaking, like, really well-known medical doctor. And he was saying how, like, he was afraid, and then, because he kept feeling this need to surrender, and he finally surrendered, and he flew off into the sky and went around planets and went through planets, and he described in such detail these magnificent experiences he had, putting his hand on the ground and suddenly he went through the ground into the earth, and, you know, could see plants in their roots. And so this beautiful human being, I feel like clearly enlightened, had just like, he loves it so much because all his experiences have been like that pure joy, pure release. And so it manifests how you need it.
I love that. I love that. And you know, I actually had another guest who I talked with, Nicole Frolic, was talking about her experience with it, and she said the first time she ever took it, she didn't feel intoxicated. That's a lot of people think that in their mind. The type that she had didn't have a lot of that. It was more of a body relaxation, almost to the point where she couldn't move because she felt almost drunk, and there was a lot of vomiting. But the emotional cleansing it took for her was huge, life altering, life shifting. And it makes me think, you know, I've heard a documentary with had 10, 12 patients with stage 2 or 3 cancer last few months of their life, and almost all of them but 2 or 3 ended up surviving and beating the cancer after they did the retreat.
Mm.
Because, you know, that physical ailment starts at the emotional, mental level. For everyone, even if we have, you know, contracts, there's still aspects of it that are still tied to the emotional and mental state. So they cleared that, and they cleared their sickness, you know. And fasting too, I'm sure, had a big part of it. Fasting a lot, and getting rid of the toxins and food for the cancer. But you know, I don't know, I can't verify any of those things, but to hear people's experiences like yours and like Nicole's and like a million other people I've talked to who've done it, it's always a very specific thing that they either knew that they needed a shift in their life, or didn't know that they needed, just knew that they needed to be there, and boom, whatever it was changed forever. So I think it's an extremely powerful thing. And I want to thank you too for sharing your perspectives and experience with it, because a lot of people who are curious about it, who don't know if they want to do it or don't, you know, they listen to people who've had the experience. And I think that's a much better teacher than the YouTube videos saying, if you take this, you'll be addicted and die. You know, people die from this every day, which is, you know, crazy and insane. But it's the pitch that some people use to steer others away. But I
Yeah.
really do appreciate that. And I love that. Um, we're getting close to lightning round 2, but before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about how you help people with spiritual, having a presence in spirituality, how you help people with books, because the coaching aspect is a big part of your work that you've done for a long time, in coaching in general. So can you just explain a little bit about what you do for people in that?
Mm. Yeah, the book aspect. Well, I'll just say all of it. I'll give you the buffet. I'm
All
a book
right.
writing coach, so I help people. Either people have started their book and didn't, they get stalled, or they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Or I have people who say, I've written, I really want a different experience this time, but whatever. I attract people who mostly they join my group. So I have an ongoing book writing group. We meet twice a month on Zoom from anywhere in the world, and I coach everybody. And what I love about this as a coach, um, and a fellow author actually, is seeing someone else's journey, being witness to it, because everybody comes in a different place, and there's something getting in their way. They can be very excited, but they don't know the system, or they have doubts or whatever. And just to see their incredible journey, becoming really good writers, knowing what they're doing, and suddenly turning around going, I love doing this. And like even last class, I had one of the gals saying, I'm writing the last chapter. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so amazing. So amazing to be with you from when you wrote the first word. And the class gets close, everybody really supports each other. So that's phenomenal. I also have a company that takes authors' books to a guaranteed international bestseller status. And that's something I do fully for the author. They just get to be them. I do all the heavy lifting, and I guarantee the results. And the other piece I do is the teaching spiritual messengers and entrepreneurs how to be interviewed on radio and podcast. And so it's not just the here's where the shows are, because that's not beneficial. There's tons of people who get interviewed, but they don't get results, right? And the results are you get more followers, you get new clients because now they know who you are. You sell books if you're writing books, and you start to build up your tribe or database, whatever it is, there are results, and it should be a ROI for your time. And also, obviously, that you give a great interview. It's so important you provide content and value for a host who's very kind to give you their well-nurtured platform and their audience. So you show up for the audience, basically, and the host. And most people don't know how to do that. They don't know what to put together. They're very amateur. They'll try to write to you on social media and say, hi, can you interview me? And it's like, no, it's not how I do this. And so I teach people the entire system so they basically can be their own publicist. They can go out in the world and do it. And occasionally I do this live. I've got an online program that is amazing. It really is amazing because so many people have taken it and they're being interviewed. And, the great thing is visibility begets visibility. So once you start doing it, then offers start coming to you. There's one woman in particular I'm thinking about. She does QHHT, and she started out with 0 interviews, took this online course, and then started being interviewed like everywhere. And then I can't believe I just saw Disclosure Fest in Vegas. She's speaking on that stage, and she's
Oh,
like starting
nice.
to, yes. And this is what it's all about. Like just letting your light shine, but knowing the strategy, understanding how to do it. So with ease and grace, it just unfolds for you. So yeah, there's that piece. I have a handful of 5 boutique clients that I do publicity work for. I get them booked on things. And, then I've got my whole world, my show, my Dare to Dream podcast, and I speak on stage, and I am doing the shaman work and et cetera. So it's, thank goodness so far, it's a very nice blend and a weave that, it's very manageable for how everything shows up.
I do love the fact that you help people with their gifts too. It's something that I have always tried to do when people who've come to me say, hey, I just started channeling and I wanted to know how to get out there, blah, blah, blah. I used to do that a lot. Lately, I don't have the time to do it, but the concepts behind some of the simple things that people don't think about when you've gone through it yourself and done it for yourself. I mean, with the books that you've had that have done so well and have been so successful, I mean, you had to teach yourself, I would imagine, unless there was some lucky angel there to help you out, right?
Yes. And yeah, it's exactly correct. I hope I'm not like that anymore, but I have an element of being a little scrappy, um, meaning a little bit like street savvy. And if I want to learn something, I'm going to power through till I learn it. And that's how it was. I wrote my first book, and then I thought, oh, there's this concept of a bestseller. Well, if I just was a doula and I gave birth to a book and I put all that energy into it, I really want it to be a bestseller. And then I just spent so much time figuring out how to do it. And ta-da, the first book became a bestseller. Second book I wrote, I thought, well, I did that already, but I've never been an international bestseller. And that's a whole different system, very different than domestic in the USA. And so I learned that. I will say I will never do it again on my own, ever, ever. And that is exactly why I offer this to people, because, yeah, it was energetically, physically not healthy. And I destroyed my computer while I was doing it. It was just way too much for one human to take on her shoulders. And so I would hire my own team from now on. Just, here you go. Let's make this rock and roll here. But it is a whole system, and it's fascinating, and it's also ever changing. Fascinating enough. So if you work, let's say, with a platform like Amazon and they're publishing, they're constantly changing their rules. So I always
Oh,
have to be
yeah.
on top of, oh, now this, now that, not that anymore. And so it's, keeps it challenging,
Well,
keeps it fun.
that's kind of why I brought that up about you teaching yourself. To go through years of beating your head against the computer and failure and finding out what works and what doesn't, failing and then gaining a little and then losing, because that's usually the author's journey. I've seen it a million times over. You figure out a way to compress it and to share it and to help take that load off. That's hugely valuable, and that's why I always find such fascination in it. I've looked at a million different aspects of our community and tried to understand the depths of it. And some things you're absolutely right, one person cannot do. Me and Kalina, God bless us, we're a two-person team who've been lucky enough to have some good friends help us out with certain things, but it is rough to do with two people and do the things that you can do, that you want to do, or that you have already set in motion. Doing the channel panel event was something that never should have been just me and Kalina, but we did it and we made it. But never again will we do it on our own. You know what I mean? It's just too much.
Yeah.
So I think that gift that you're giving to people to help them with that is just that. It's a gift. It's something that will be so useful for anyone who does that too. We've gone a little bit over on our time before the lightning round, but I think we can do this. I always do this whenever I get talking with people and get excited. I always go over my self-imposed limit. So let's go to the lightning round. This is going to be like 5 or 6 benevolent questions.
Okay.
You don't have to answer them if you don't want, but it's just to get to know you better. We know you now. For people who might not have known you, now know you. For people who already know you, might have known you in one or two aspects, but mostly they know you on a professional level and for what you do level. This is to get to know you as a regular, ordinary human being, and I always find it fascinating to go through these with people. So the first question is, what is your favorite color?
Teal, blue, green.
beautiful. Our last week's guest agreed with you highly there. Dante
Oh,
loves teal too. Um, you know what? Jimmy Church did too when he was on. He
I
actually
love
loved it.
Jimmy.
Yeah, he actually teal is his favorite. Um, what about your favorite food?
Oh my gosh. I have some well, I love seaweed. It's true. I love seaweed. I seaweed salad, seaweed whatever. Oh, I love avocados. I love, salmon. I love salmon. Mm,
Yeah, salmon's delicious
and I
in
love
the sunrise.
barbecue. I'm like, yeah, I love barbecue. I could barbecue all week long.
Yeah, who doesn't love a barbecue if it's done well? If you eat meat, obviously. Some people don't, but yeah, the barbecue thing. It's summertime too. The best time for it.
Best.
Oh, it's coming up to summer, but um, let me see. Well, oh yes, you're a music person, so this might be extraordinarily tough for you. But
Mm.
what is your favorite band and or song?
Hmm. Well, I'll tell you it's always changing. So I'm an I'll go old OG. Definitely Stevie Wonder. He will always for me be like, oh,
Oh
take my breath
yeah,
away. And then right now, hopefully I'll turn you guys on to something, but it's actually we're learning to play these songs in our band and it's Starling Arrow. It's all female, I think 5 females, and they do amazing harmonies. You'd recognize probably a lot of them who are in this group because they have their own groups independently. So I'm really enjoying them right now. I love Rising Appalachia. And yeah. And I just love, 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 love music. I'm not into rap. I'm not into heavy metal or anything like that. But other than that, almost all music for me is a, a language that I just adore.
absolutely. And your own band is amazing. I went and checked them out, the Lions of Lyra, and that's an amazing group that you do a lot of really high vibe spiritual music too. And in the chat, we have to acknowledge Tina Turner, one of the greatest.
Yes.
Yeah, she passed today. If you hadn't heard the news, you heard it here.
Mm.
Rest in peace, Tina Turner. She's amazing. Thank you. And Stevie Wonder, I only heard his mainstream stuff, and Kalina found the song "If It's Magic," and
Oh.
holy God, that is like an all-time. I integrated that into my neutralizing music actually because it's such an amazing song. So thank you for sharing that. What is your favorite animal?
Oh, you have no idea I'm such an animal person. Well, first of all, I have a dog, so I have to pay homage to her. Shelby is my heart. She is my soul. She truly is. I never had a relationship like this in my life. So Shelby the dog is here with us. She's always here with me while I work and live. And then, so I love lions because I have a big connection with Lyra, and I definitely have feline in me. And this is kind of personal, but I'm gonna share this because I was working with a shaman who took me on a journey, and I was in a very particular cave situation, and things were happening, and very unexpectedly, I saw a bear. I had this entire incredibly real experience with a giant brown bear who could have been terrifying because he was mostly on his 2 legs rearing back, but he did so out of complete protection for me. And it was a whole experience. And when I came out, I shared with this shaman, like, wow, this whole thing happened. And I explained it to her, and she said, I want you to go home and look this up. A brown bear is a spirit animal. And I did, and I was like, "Wow." I wouldn't have thought cognitively this animal ever, and reading this, it makes so much sense. It's beautiful. So I have a little brown bear. It sits on my altar, and so I would say that is also now one of my very favorite animals.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And when you said you have a connection to lions, it's funny. because I showed Kalina one of your videos, and when I was saying, yeah, I'm going to do an interview, and she goes, I know that name. I was like, you'll know her when you see her. You've seen shows from her before. And I put on, oh yeah, she's the lady. She's got a lot of feline energy. And I was like, yeah.
Oh, she's so smart.
Yeah. And she also, I put on the screen the comment. She said, your voice is very sweet, and she thinks you do an amazing rendition of If It's Magic. So something to think of if you know a harp player.
And
Yeah.
I do. My guy's name is Rob too. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you for that recommendation. Taken.
Yeah, I think it would be great too. I love that song, and I've not heard many good covers of it. I'd love to
Mm.
hear it too. Uh, Second to last question will be: you've been a lot of places around the world, and you've got a chance to see it, which gives you some more options here. But what's the absolute best place that you've ever been for the sheer physical beauty and energetic beauty of the place in nature?
Mamma mia. It's Italy. I gotta say, oof. I saw a picture, in a magazine or something of Italy, and something happened. I was like, "I have got to go there." And it took me more years than I had planned, but I did go. I went alone. I planned the entire trip, myself, and it was everything I wanted and way beyond that. And I could totally live there. I feel such a strong resonance with Italy. I could absolutely find a home and be very happy there and learn Italian and just drink wine and eat cheese, you know? It is, a magnificent country. Ah, and there's so much more to see. So for sure, Italy.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I knew you're a wine connoisseur, so yeah, what a better place than Italy, right? Well, California
Mm,
and Italy, you got two of the world's powerhouses you've been a part of. So,
that's right. Day is good. I'm actually Italian wine specialist. So yeah, it's big on my list.
oh wow, well, that's amazing. Yeah. Um, the last question, and this one sometimes rings a few bells with people who might. It was a rough process, but we learned that this question actually was a little more sensitive for some people than others. But what was your favorite childhood memory?
My favorite I feel like if you were watching me on TV, it would be the calendar pages flipping off, doo 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 doo, and I'm tumbling backwards in time. Um, I I loved performing. As a little kid, I was in shows, I would get up on stage. I was so fearless when I was little, and so those are beautiful memories for me. And then I don't know where this picture came from, but somebody, found a picture of me growing up. I don't know where it was taken. All I know is I feel like somebody captured a moment of me, and it's the very thing the divine had said, "Who you are, this shaman, healer, priestess." So I'm a kid, and I have these short bangs and long hair, and it's all braided down the sides, and I'm wearing a fake tiara with some tulle in the back, like little princess priestess. I'm wearing this dress, and somehow I created a robe that I tied around like a cape around my neck, and I found a staff. And I am so solemnly, so powerfully for a kid staring into the camera, and someone shot this picture, and it is my favorite picture of me. Like, whoa, something as lost as I was back then, and I was for many reasons very lost, there was that element, that spark that knew its path and was reflected in that moment. And that is my favorite picture memory.
That's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that too. It's amazing when we get to be out of our 30s and start going into the 40s. Aspects for my own self and Kalina have really started to value and appreciate some of those things that we randomly remember out of nowhere. But for this to be shown to you in the same guidance, that makes it even more powerful. And I want to thank you for sharing that too. Before I hand over the mic back to you and let you share with things that you've got coming up and what you're doing apart, I first want to say thank you so much for being here tonight. I know you've been busy, and I know a lot of things going on with you. You're one of the busier people I know too, who's always doing something for part of your energy towards sharing and working. But also thank you for being who you are and sharing your experience. It was very valuable for everyone here tonight who listened to hear just how it unfolded for you, and you were brave enough to roll with things even when you didn't feel those in the first
Mhm.
place. But also for just doing what you do in the community, and for me personally, helping me out in the places you have has been tremendously shifting for energy and things that me and Clean have been trying to get done for a while. And as soon as you helped me with one thing, all of the doors started flooding open, which is usually how it goes. So the angel that I've needed for that has appeared, and you took the form of that. And I
Mm.
appreciate that very, very much.
Oh, you're so welcome and you're so worth it, And for whatever reason, our paths crossed. I'm so grateful as well. And thank you for answering the call and showing up and being who you are. And, you have such a good heart, Rob. You really do. And you deserve so much magic for sure.
Thank you. I do appreciate that more than you could ever know. And I did put up on the screen, guys, the link for the Conscious Life Expo, which Debbie, myself, Kalina will all be there in February. Um, so, of course, we've got the links in the description. And for all of you who are listening on the Matrix Minds, on the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, or YouTube here on the ET Whisper, you guys have access to that right now. But if you're listening back on Forbidden Knowledge News Network, or you're listening back in Conscious Awakening Network, you will have those links also. But if you want to share with us, if someone wants to get a hold of you, if someone wants to work with you for a book, if someone wants to check out your show, if someone wants to just check out your energy in general, or if you have something going on, please share anything and everything you want to share.
Mm. Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, my website's the best place, DebbiDachinger.com. It's pretty easy if you spell my name right. And it is an interesting first and last name. So, yeah, DebbiDachinger.com is the place. Support at DebbiDachinger.com is the email. And the team sees it and can volley something to me if needed. I am rolling out a class. I'm actually going to be doing a free webinar. Let me start there. I'm doing a free webinar about how to be your own publicist. So if anybody is wanting to be interviewed and doesn't know how to do it, or has been doing it, not really getting results, you can just sign up on my website. You'll get free gifts anyway from the website, and then you'll be on the list. And so when that webinar is ready to roll out, you can join, and love to have you, love to show you how to do this. And the other thing is, for folks who want to write a book and you are interested in joining the twice a month Zoom group that meets to write their books, that's at DebbiDachinger.com/visible visionaries. And yeah, as far as the shaman work, if anybody wants to go down that road, same, there's also a contact form on my website. You can always reach out. And I just want to say, I think you have got an amazing audience. They have been so chatty and connected and positive, and I really appreciate all of you and who you're being at this incredible time. And thank you for taking time out of wherever you are in the world to join us. I really appreciate it.
We are very fortunate to have a very amazing audience, and we have one that's growing, and it's very interesting to me. I did the podcast more for myself than anything, about being able to connect with so many awesome people. I know so many people from being in the community for as long as I have, but I knew that the conversations would find their way to the people who needed them of value. And I've gotten more than what I hoped for. For me, it was just a tool to release. As much as I love my channeling, I don't always get to be a part of the chat. And sometimes that can get a little, a little boring with me being a chatty Cathy as I am. And
Mhm.
I definitely enjoy being on this part of it too. But the people who follow us have been amazing. And I know you have a bunch of dedicated followers for your show that you've done for 16 years at this point. And they are amazing people too, who are very welcoming to me in the comments that I've seen just on the YouTube. And I know you're going to be sharing those in other places also with the interview. And for those of you who want to check out the replay links, all the website links, the interview that I did with Debbi recently, all of those will be in the replay on my YouTube, ET Whisper, and I will also add them to the pinned comment at the top of the ET Whisper, so you can check those out. And thanks again, Debbi, for being here. I really appreciate you, and we'll definitely have to do this again once we get back around to second appearances for people. We still have a list of people we're going through now to do their first appearance, but I would love to have you back on, and I look forward to us connecting many more times.
Mm.
I'm glad we found each other in our lives, and I appreciate you being here tonight.
1,000%. And I also want to back at you, my friend, because before Conscious Life Expo, I interview many of the headliners, right? And so I actually get to pick. And so you'll be on the roster. So chances are you're probably coming back on my show too.
Yes, I'll be there. You tell me when, I'll do it, because I actually, and it's funny when you said that, I have not channeled on an interview for 4 or 5 years. I haven't
Really?
done it. Yeah. And um, you and one other person who asked me recently to do it, I did, but I did for you because I felt like it would be really great for not just the people who would first check it out and be able to hear, but it also is an energetic shift too that I wanted to make, and I figured to do it your place
Mm.
first would be the best place to do it. So
Oh, man, I'm so honored, and it was so good. Oh my god, it was such a good show. You really brought a lot of wisdom. I've gotten terrific feedback. So here, all your folks should also check that out because that was a beautiful conversation.
yeah, it was, and I put the link to the YouTube channel there, and we'll have more links to add to there. I know you put it in Apple Radio and a few other places too.
YouTube and all the
Yeah,
major podcast sites, yeah.
yeah. So those will get added to, guys. I want to let you guys know that we're here every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. That's 7 Pacific. Come here next week. We'll be here. And again, I'm sorry for not having the guests. I should have been looking it up during the show, but I've been enjoying the chat with everybody. And I also enjoyed this show with Debbi, and it's been amazing, amazing energy. So come next week. If you want to know who the guest is, I'll be announcing it soon on my Facebook page for the Enlightenment Evolution Hour, which will have its own website soon, as soon as we get time to get it set up. And we also are going to start archiving on the Enlightenment Evolution Network YouTube channel. We're going to get that back up and running and start archiving old shows. So thank you for joining us, everyone. Come here next week. We'll be around, and check out all the links, and make sure to go check out Debbi's website too if anything she said or we talked about resonated with you guys. Thanks again, Debbi. I appreciate you being here
Mwah.
so much.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It's such a pleasure.
Well, that's wonderful. I had a great time too, guys. Thank you all in the chat. I love you all very much. Thank you for being a part of our live. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for your support in any way, shape, or form. And we'll see you guys next week, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 Pacific, and we'll see you on the other side. Good night, everybody.